Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be a huge game. Something that's remarkable about it is how open the devs have been to questions that people have asked. Recently, through this venue, it's been revealed that all cutscenes are going to be in first-person perspective, including sex scenes. This has caused people to really wonder how that's going to work. And there are aspects beyond the fact that a sex scene might be controversial in this mode that people have considered. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, let's talk about the cutscenes in Cyberpunk 2077, all being in first person. So, like I said in the intro, the Cyberpunk 2077 devs, CD Projekt Red, have been incredibly open with a lot of questions that have been asked directly to them through direct messages and other venues that social media has allowed. One fan who heard a rumor there would be no more third-person cutscenes sent a message saying, "Hello, some people said there is no more TPP view, that's third-person perspective view, in cutscenes, etc. Is this true?" The account answered, "In Cyberpunk 2077, immersion is very important for us, so yes, cutscenes are first-person perspective." They asked, "And what about the sex scenes?" This was answered with, "Same." So right off, we know they're going all in on first-person perspective as far as cutscenes go. That's pretty much the line you would expect them not to cross if they weren't going to. Clearly, they very much believe in this, but there are a few contentions that one might have when one finds this out. A fair amount of games that have first-person perspective cutscenes don't really spend the time making them artful. Like, let's say you get in an elevator and you look into the inside of an elevator, like in the beginning of Deus Ex Human Revolution. Now, that's not to say that they're all bad in Deus Ex Human Revolution. In fact, for the most part, they're actually pretty good. I think in that game it's handled quite well, but that elevator stuck in a lot of players' minds. It's not particularly artful when the thing you do is just show what a person might see. Now, that being said, CD Projekt Red is, I'm gonna go ahead and say, pretty darn good with the artful games. Sometimes to the detriment of certain players as they get annoyed at seeing Geralt naked again and again and again. However, these are clearly third-person cutscenes, and that's what we're used to from CD Projekt Red for the most part. In fact, talking about elevators, in that 45-minute trailer, there's actually a scene where the characters get out of an elevator, and that's probably not going to be in third person anymore. That's probably going to be visible from the perspective of the player. Now, it's important to note that advancing technology is going to make various things possible. But in order to manage visually interesting first-person cutscenes, it's not just going to be about having something on screen at all times. There will be times there's probably reflections used to show you yourself and what you are doing. Technological advancement would of course make this better, as true reflections could be done, but it's important to remember that even in current games like Hitman, there are reflections. And they're not bad, they're perfectly serviceable. They just may not have the kinds of imperfections a real mirror might have that would lend to the more realism and cool-looking factor that the influx of ray tracing hardware is probably going to allow in the next few years. So while a number of people have lamented the loss of side boob and butt shots, I get the feeling they're not actually completely gone. Keeping that in mind, there's probably a fair amount of questions about whether or not clothing customization will actually matter. And it's important to note that if reflections are actually a thing that is taken advantage of, whether in high definition ray tracing goodness or a more rudimentary version that simply allows you to see your character, but it is perfectly understandable why some might be disappointed they won't be seeing their character as much. This in mind, it's probably reasonable to expect that on the PC version, there will be mods that are made that insert a third-person mode into the game. However, understanding that first-person cutscenes are absolutely built in a way that is quite a precarious proposition in order to switch into third person. On account, third-person cutscenes would require facial animation and a lot of things that probably just won't inherently be there. It may be quite a difficult proposition, and my fingers are crossed that somebody does figure it out for those who do in fact want third-person cutscenes. However, that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and say that personally, I think this probably will be fine. It's a disappointment for sure, and while we're on that point, I think it's fairly important to note that it's perfectly possible to be immersed in a game that's third person. In fact, that's the reason we like Witcher 3 so much. Do I think that this is going to be some kind of a game derailing thing? Not really. There's a lot of concern that this was done late, but we don't really know what stage of the development it was decided that this would change. For all we know, it could have been literally any time between the last time we saw a third-person cutscene and now. That said, almost every decision it seems like they've made, they've given the impression that a lot of thought has gone into it. They've shifted directions multiple times during the development process, and it doesn't sound like that's a bad thing. Obviously, in some development cycles it is a bad thing, but they've really taken their time on making the game that they want to make, from what people working on the game have said. Also, I'm just morbidly curious about the sex scenes. Will they be artful and good or clever in some way, or will it be just like ultra cringe? Who knows? Either way, I'm interested. There's some minor dispute over whether the news was misinterpreted, but Marcin Momat, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing, the global community lead at CD Projekt Red, had the following to say. Achieving full immersion in a first-person perspective game is extremely important, and the decision made by the team to go 100% first-person is something that will benefit it greatly from gameplay and storytelling perspectives. That said, players will still be able to see their characters in the inventory screen, during driving sequences, in mirrors, and very occasionally in some cutscenes. Either way, Cyberpunk 2077 is probably going to be one of the biggest games of the last 5 years, and regardless of how the cutscenes play out, I think we're really going to enjoy the game. What do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, please click like, and if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is of course a subscription, so click subscribe and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.